I think the refs had a lot to do with that. It was a build-up for a couple of years now of them just not protecting, the star player of the WNBA. And so at the end of the day, I'm going to protect my teammates. That's what I do. And I'm a team player, so it's all good.
A WNBA player is reportedly taking the unprecedented step of suing the league's own referees. This isn't about a few bad calls or a heated dispute. This is a full-blown legal assault against a system being accused of systematically failing to protect its biggest star, Caitlin Clark. After watching her teammate be relentlessly targeted, hip-checked, and assaulted on the court, one player, Sophie Cunningham, has decided that if the league won't enforce its own rules, she will force them to in a court of law. This is the story of how one brutal televised game became the breaking point, pushing a teammate to risk her entire career to ignite a firestorm that threatens to expose the WNBA's darkest secrets. A fight that could either save the league or tear it apart completely.
So we will take all media questions today, but we're just supposed to read from a script, and that's exactly what I'm going to do here. On behalf of my teammates and every member of our union, I want to be very clear that we remain committed to negotiating the next CBA with the league and the teams in good faith and privately. But we do want to set the record straight, not for the headlines, but for the fans who support us and deserve transparency. What's at stake? This is a defining moment in the WNBA. As the league grows, it's time for the CBA that reflects our true value. We are fighting for a fair share of business that we built because it is a business. We are fighting for anything. We are not fighting for anything that's unreasonable.
The flashpoint for this entire saga was an explosive game against the Connecticut Sun, a night that will forever be remembered as the moment the officiating crisis went from a quiet concern to a 5-alarm fire. The world watched as Caitlin Clark, the rookie sensation single-handedly rewriting the league's future, was treated less like a superstar and more like a human punching bag. The sequence of events was as blatant as it was disgraceful. First, JC Sheldon drove her arm forward, poking Clark directly in the eye in a move that had nothing to do with basketball. As Clark recoiled in obvious pain, still trying to regain her sight, Marina Mabrey saw her opportunity. She shoved Clark with both hands, sending the stunned player stumbling backward to the ground. It was a clear, coordinated, multi-part assault happening in plain sight of everyone in the arena.
All right, enough is enough. At some point, the line gets crossed too often where something needs to be done and things need to be corrected. And that is certainly the case with the way things around Caitlin Clark are officiated. This is a constant problem now. It is something that since the beginning, I've kind of backed off on because physical play is a part of sports. Going after a superstar and trying to rough them up a little bit to get in their head is a part of sports. But when it crosses the line, the referees need to do their jobs. They need to do their jobs, blow the whistle, and officiate properly. Hand out flagrants, kick people out of games, nip it in the bud.
But the physical aggression wasn't the most shocking part. The true scandal was the referee's response. After a brief review, they made a decision so baffling it defied all logic and reason. They hit Caitlin Clark with a technical foul for unsportsmanlike conduct. The victim, still reeling from being poked in the eye and then shoved to the floor, was penalized for her reaction to being assaulted. Meanwhile, her attackers walked away with minimal consequences, their actions implicitly condoned by the officials. The message sent by the referees was chillingly clear. Not only is it open season on Caitlin Clark, but the very people paid to protect her will punish her for daring to complain about it. In that moment, the whistle became a weapon, and the rules no longer seemed to apply.
Caitlin Clark got destroyed. Her girl Sophie came to her defense, and this was the most beast mode thing that I've seen a woman do in WNBA history. Now watch this, what they did to Caitlin Clark, and then we're going to play the clip of Sophie Cunningham. Roll the clip.
Is that displacement? I think it is.
Oh, and Marina Mabrey's going to get ejected. If the officials saw that, Marina Mabrey is going to get ejected.
Well, they're going to go and look at it. Look at Mabrey. She's got a scar on one side, a scratch on one side of the face, a scratch on the other side. It's not from the game today. I asked her about it. She's always in the mix. There's a lot of contact here.
Watching from the sidelines was Sophie Cunningham, and she had seen this exact pattern repeat itself in game after game. The cheap shots in the back, the blatant hip checks off the ball, and the officials who suddenly seemed to forget what a foul was whenever Clark was involved. With just 46 seconds left on the clock and the game's outcome already decided, she decided to deliver a message that would resonate far beyond the confines of the court. As Sheldon headed for what should have been an easy, uncontested layup, Cunningham delivered a hard, flagrant flagrant foul. To the casual observer, it might have looked like a moment of frustration, but it was far more than that. It was a calculated declaration.
In fact, she gets a technical foul after getting poked in the eye and then shoved to the floor, and Marina Mabrey doesn't even get thrown out of the game. It's basically open season on Caitlin Clark, and the special whistle that she supposedly gets goes in the other direction. Flagrantly so. They got to put it to an end. I mean, she's the most valuable player in the league in the most literal sense. And somehow she gets the opposite of superstar treatment. And that's what you saw with the Connecticut Sun and Indiana Fever. The Fever won the game. Of course they won the game. Of course they won the game. They're better.
This wasn't just a dirty play, it was an act of enforcement. Cunningham, who has a reputation for her toughness and was even rumored to be a black belt, was stepping up to do the job the referees had completely abdicated. She was serving notice to the entire league and its officials. If you will not protect our star player, then we will. The foul was a direct and undeniable challenge to the WNBA's authority, a signal that the players were done waiting for a help that was clearly never going to arrive. Her action drew a line in the sand, creating a division between the players who understood what was happening and a league that seemed content to let its biggest star be systematically broken down.
Y'all ain't really tapped in, cause Sophie Cunningham been crashed out. She been popping it like overly. They've been saying she wasn't all the air, and I knew this. Y'all, I ain't gonna lie. Y'all lucky she wasn't in the game when it happened. Y'all lucky she wasn't in the game, because Marina Mabrey would have got the pause for real. I ain't gonna lie. The girl, I don't even know the little girl that got in the clinch. I ain't gonna lie, she did her dirty. I was just waiting for the knees. I was waiting for the high knees. Because they said she was a black belt. I didn't know she was a black belt, but I knew she was a popper. I knew she was with all the smoke. She ain't never ducking no smoke ever.
What happened in the hours and days that followed Cunningham's foul was nothing short of a cultural earthquake. Her stand on the court was just the beginning. The public's reaction proved she was now the leader of a rapidly growing movement. Overnight, Sophie Cunningham went from a respected role player to a global phenomenon. Her social media accounts exploded in a way that is almost unheard of. Her TikTok following skyrocketed from less than 400,000 to over 1.2 million. Her Instagram page was flooded with over 700,000 new followers who weren't just curious. They were there to show their support. Her jerseys were completely bought out online, with fans proudly hailing her as the enforcer, the bodyguard, and the Queen of Indiana.
Are we even surprised about this? Sophie Cunningham's jersey sales just passed Caitlin Clark's after she goes viral overnight for protecting Caitlin Clark in a game where she got fined $400, which Caitlin Clark apparently is paying for. But yeah, we found our new queen at Indiana.
This wasn't just a player going viral, it was a powerful referendum on the state of the WNBA. Fans were starved for a hero. They were desperately waiting for someone, anyone, to finally validate their own frustrations and stand up for Caitlin Clark. The overwhelming wave of support for Cunningham revealed just how deep the anger ran. It demonstrated that fans saw the biased officiating for exactly what it was and were tired of the league's diplomatic non-answers. This groundswell of support was a clear message. The fans had chosen a side, and it wasn't with the league or its officials. It was with the woman who had the courage to fight back.
The Fever saw it coming. They went and got Sophie Cunningham, 6-year-old black belt. This is what the Bulls did with Charles Oakley to protect Michael Jordan. Watch the retaliation later by Sophie Cunningham. And again, this is inappropriate, right? No, it's what happens in basketball.
Just as her fame was reaching a fever pitch, a shocking rumor began to surface. One that suggested Sophie Cunningham's fight was about to move from the basketball court into a court of law. In a move that could shatter the entire foundation of professional sports, reports began to circulate that Cunningham was pursuing unprecedented legal action, not against a player, but against the WNBA's referees themselves. She wasn't just filing a formal complaint or a grievance. She was allegedly suing them for gross negligence. This groundbreaking case, if it proceeds, isn't about a single bad call or one missed foul. It's about a documented systematic failure to protect a player from targeted harassment over an extended period.
Against the WNBA refs.
The WNBA refs are the worst. They really are the worst in the WNBA. Some of these women's refs, I don't know if you feel this way, Angel, but they have a long way to go.
It's been like that for a while. I don't know what it is. It's like, if they go to ref school, I don't understand.
They're going to the Phoenix University of ref schools.
They're going to DeVry.
Yeah, bro.
The implications of such a lawsuit are monumental. It would be a David versus Goliath battle, pitting one player against the entire league apparatus and its officials. Legally, it would test the very concept of a referee's duty of care to the players they officiate. If successful, this case could set a historic precedent, making sports officials across all leagues personally liable for failing to ensure player safety when a clear pattern of targeted aggression exists. Cunningham is reportedly risking her entire career and future in the league to hold the system accountable in a way no one has ever dared to before. This is no longer about basketball. It's a fight for accountability that could change the power dynamic between players and leagues forever.
Caitlin Clark is a really hard player to officiate, much like Diana Taurasi was throughout the course of her career, for a couple of reasons. Caitlin Clark regularly gets picked up in the full court. She also gets blitzed more over the course of her career than any player in WNBA history or in that period of time. And she also creates some contact herself on the offensive end of the floor. She is very difficult to officiate because of all of the contact that's happening around her all of the time. That being said, I was in contact with a number of WNBA coaches yesterday about this topic of the officiating in the WNBA, and all of them said it needs to get better. Specifically, the consistency, not only from one game to the next, but the consistency within a game. One coach told me, we tell our players to be as physical as they can possibly be for 40 minutes because we know for 38 of them, they're pretty much going to get away with it. So I think
to truly understand why Sophie Cunningham would be willing to risk everything, you have to understand what's really at stake. Caitlin Clark is not just another talented rookie. She is a generational billion-dollar asset that the WNBA seems inexplicably determined to squander. The numbers are staggering and paint a damning picture of the league's incompetence. On the road, Clark's presence boosts opposing teams' attendance by an average of 87%. Games featuring Clark have 105% more fans in the building compared to games without her. She is responsible for more than 1/3 of the league's entire attendance this season, a figure that is simply mind-boggling for a single player.
You should have had the second jersey WNBA I bought. I did not know that you were so proficient in holding the back of a girl's head while talking shit to her. She defended Caitlin Clark from that flagrant foul, which they didn't call flagrant for some reason last night. And she had her titled up. And then the rest of the Don Imus crew came up and tried to, separate it and whatever. But let me just tell y'all this. Sophie Cunningham, thank you for defending Caitlin Clark. Somebody in the WNBA has to protect the brand, and it's not going to be the EBT members. So thank you for protecting the greatest female basketball player of all time. I was unfamiliar with your work. I've seen the walk-in videos. I've seen all the other stuff. I didn't know you had hands.
Teams like the Seattle Storm, Los Angeles Sparks, and Washington Mystics have all seen their attendance figures jump by more than 100% for the one night Clark comes to town. She is the engine driving television viewership, merchandise sales, and media interest to levels the WNBA has never come close to seeing. From a purely business perspective, allowing your most valuable asset to be systematically abused by jealous competitors and incompetent officials is not just professional malpractice. It is an act of catastrophic financial self-sabotage. You don't let rivals chip away at the golden goose. You build a fortress around her. The WNBA's failure to do so isn't just negligent, it's baffling.
This is a message for the WNBA. Do you realize that what you have in Caitlin Clark is a once-in-a-generation talent? She was massively successful in college, and that's transcended into the WNBA, where she's leaps and bounds above pretty much most every player there. You're allowing her to get beaten up on the regular during games, flagrant fouls, people trying to take her eye out. That's happened a couple different times last year and this year. And you're not protecting your asset.
The league's failure to protect its biggest star isn't an isolated issue or the fault of a few bad referees. It points to a much darker, more deep-seated rot within the WNBA's officiating core. This is a system in a state of total collapse. Respected ESPN analyst Rebecca Lobo, after meticulously studying game tape of every prominent rookie to enter the league for the past 27 years, stated unequivocally that Caitlin Clark is played differently, defended differently, and officiated differently than any rookie in the history of the league. This isn't just an opinion from a talking head, it is a documented fact from one of the sport's most credible experts. The pattern of non-calls and targeted hits is undeniable.
Right. These girls have been grinding to grow the game of basketball in the WNBA. They've been grinding to grow the sport to the world, the viewerships. They've been grinding for all of this. And then you have this girl that comes along from college and is an instant change. She's handed pretty much being the face of the league. There's going to be girls that are offended by that. And there's going to be girls that think she's got to earn it and she doesn't deserve this early. She's handled it great. I think she's performed last year. She's performing again this year. I think she's the rightful face of the NBA.
But the problem may go even deeper than mere incompetence or bias. The entire officiating system has been rocked by a crisis of integrity. The league was recently forced to fire 3 referees following a major bribery investigation, proving that the system is vulnerable to corruption from outside influences. When you combine a clear, documented bias against your star player with a system that has already been proven to be corruptible, you have a crisis of catastrophic proportions. It erodes all trust, leaving fans and players to wonder if the games are being called fairly at all. The problem isn't just a few bad apples, the entire barrel may be rotten.
Caitlin Clark is the golden goose. Every game she is dropping golden eggs, and they are trying to strangle the golden goose to death. There's jealousy, there is hate. Everyone in the league seems to hate the fact that Caitlin Clark is making the league relevant. If I were advising Caitlin Clark, I would say start your own pro basketball league for women. I don't know why she benefits from the WNBA at all. She could go out, she is the draw for women's basketball, and set up her own league. She might even be able to own the majority of the league. She could probably become a billionaire. Set it up with far fewer teams. You play far fewer games. Heck, they did it with Live Golf. I think the audience would follow Caitlin Clark wherever she goes.
Faced with a mounting crisis, a viral movement, and a potential lawsuit, how did the WNBA's leadership respond? Their official reaction was perhaps more damning than anything that happened on the court. Instead of addressing the root cause of the problem, the dangerous fouls and biased officiating, the league chose to fine Sophie Cunningham for her protective actions. They essentially punished the one person who did what their own employees refused to do. This decision was a stunning slap in the face to players and fans alike. It sent a loud and clear message. The league office is more concerned with penalizing a player who fights back than it is with stopping the initial aggressors.
So we're 25 days away from All-Star, just under 4 weeks. That's the clock is ticking. We came out here and play most of every night in front of these fans. And we will continue to do that. But the current system is unsustainable for us, and that means it's unsustainable for the business that we have created. Nothing short of transformational change will do for the future we see and the fans clearly that we see. So we're paying attention. Everyone's paying attention. This is a business. This is about our players. And so if they're not meeting us, then we're not going to meet them.
Commissioner Kathy Engelbert's public statements about upholding the highest standards of the league now ring completely hollow and hypocritical. Her administration's inaction highlights a stark and unforgivable disconnect between the league's carefully crafted PR words and its actual deeds. By fining Cunningham, the league effectively endorsed the very behavior that created the problem. They doubled down on their mistake, aligning themselves with the broken officiating system and against their own players and fans. This wasn't just a poor decision, it was a declaration of whose side they were on, and it wasn't Caitlin Clark's. Beyond the incompetent referees and the cowardly league office, there's a darker, unspoken motive driving this whole affair: professional jealousy. Many believe the relentless targeting of Caitlin Clark stems from a deep-seated resentment among veteran players. These are women who have been grinding for years, fighting for viewership and recognition in a league that has always struggled for mainstream attention. Then, seemingly overnight, a rookie arrives from college and is instantly handed the keys to the kingdom. She becomes the face of the league, gets the lion's share of media coverage, and draws crowds they could only dream of. From this perspective, the hard fouls and cheap shots are not just about welcoming a rookie to the league. They are personal. It's a bitter message from a faction of players who believe Clark hasn't earned her status and needs to be taken down a peg. This undercurrent of envy explains why so many players remain silent or, in some cases, even defend the aggressive tactics against her. It also puts the WNBA in an impossible position. If they crack down too hard to protect their new star, they risk alienating the veteran players who feel overshadowed and disrespected. So instead, they do nothing, allowing the resentment to fester and play out violently on the court. This crisis is no longer an internal WNBA problem. It has officially broken containment and erupted into a national sports scandal, drawing condemnation from some of the biggest names in the athletic world. When a figure like NBA Hall of Famer Kevin Garnett, a player famous for his own intensity, publicly praises Sophie Cunningham for defending her teammate, it sends a powerful message. He recognized the play not as dirty, but as necessary. Tennis legend Chris Evert called Clark the best thing to ever happen to women's basketball, implicitly criticizing the league for failing to protect such a vital asset. This outcry from respected sports legends validates everything the fans have been screaming about for months. It proves that this isn't just an overreaction from a passionate fan base. It's a legitimate failure of league governance that is now being recognized on a global stage. The WNBA is losing control of the narrative, and every non-call and every fine against a protector only digs the hole deeper. The league's credibility is hemorrhaging, and the voices calling them out are no longer just fans on social media, but iconic figures who command the respect of the entire sports world. The WNBA's baffling incompetence has led many to start asking a question that was once unthinkable. Does Caitlin Clark even need the WNBA? As the league continues to allow her to be targeted, a far more radical solution is gaining traction. Clark is the golden goose, and it appears her own league is content to let jealous rivals strangle her. If the WNBA refuses to protect its greatest asset, then perhaps she should leave and build a new league that will. The idea of her starting her own professional women's basketball league is no longer a fringe fantasy. In today's media landscape, it is a very real possibility. With her unprecedented star power, she could secure the funding, attract the top talent, and most importantly, bring her massive, loyal audience with her. Fans have already proven they will follow her to different cities, different arenas, and different TV networks. The WNBA seems to have forgotten the most fundamental rule of business. They need Caitlin Clark far, far more than she needs them. The clock is ticking. As the league continues to mishandle this crisis, the question is no longer if they will ever fix the problem, but whether they will lose the very player who gave them a future before they even get the chance. The choice is theirs, but the consequences of inaction are becoming clearer with every cheap shot she takes.